Hi there, my name is Maeve and I work in the Arts Office in Cork County Council. Today I'm going to go through the Arts Grants Scheme for 2022. I'm just going to share my screen. So our applications for funding for arts organisations, groups and individuals are all online now. So you can go to yourcouncil.ie and if you have logged in previously in other years to make online applications, you would use your email and password to do that. Otherwise, you can create an account, which should happen fairly quickly. If you have any issues with this, there is a tab here, trouble logging in, and that way you can communicate to the IT team in the County Council. So when you do log in, so that's just that there, you can ask for help with different things. So when you do log in successfully, you'll see this page here, and you're going for this one here. So when you click into that, you'll come to this page here. So the window for applications is open now, and the closing date is the 9th of January. Now there's a lot of different ones here. So the ones for organisations be the Arts Grant Scheme or the Irish Language Scheme, that is very, very similar to the Arts Grant Scheme, but for people using Irish within their practice or their projects or activities. There's also another one here, Artists in Schools Scheme. Now that's for schools and artists, which may not apply to your organisation and group, but it could be that you have a relationship with a school, and it could be that you think this might be good to send on to them, or it could be that you work with artists who are interested in working in schools, so maybe this could be highlighted to them. The ones down here are for individual artists in all art forms except for the Ballantlen. That's for visual artists only. So again, not for groups or organizations, but it could be that you know of artists that would benefit from these. So the one thing these all have in common is that they're for artists and organizations in Cork County. So in some circumstances, it could be that an organisation is not based in the county, but they're applying to the Arts Grant Scheme for a project that's based in the county and is of direct benefit to artists and audience participants in the county. But just to be aware that if that is you, that it is a competitive process, and you would be up against organisations based in County Cork. So if you go into this, so you'll see this first page here, which is a summary of the main funding aims and objectives for all of the grants that we are doing and residencies. And then each grant has its own specific guidelines. So if you were to go in there, then you'll see in more detailed. So these are our aims. You don't obviously have to fit all of these. We have a couple of new ones this year. So this one here, to support artistic activities and events that focus public attention on climate change and the environment. So it's a public-facing project. And then supporting participation in national initiatives, including Culture Night and Cringin and Oak. So other national initiatives could be, for example, Bealtaine. So we'll just go back. So the first thing you come across is, will the proposed event take place on Cork County Council controlled property or in a public space? So if the answer is no, then fine, keep going. If the answer is yes, then it will bring you down here. So You would need to include evidence that you have made an application to use that space. Because what has happened before is that we've granted funding for something, but the organisation or group hasn't actually gotten permission to do it on council-owned property. Down here, you'll see we're all familiar now with having to make contingency plans relating to COVID-19 and changes in guidelines. So we're looking for evidence that you have thought things through and that certain things can still happen, or maybe things are adjusted, or the way that you disseminate work is blended between in-person and online. So we're looking for proof of thinking about it and proof that things can be flexible so that the whole thing doesn't get cancelled. And then just to remind that the Cork City boundary expanded in 2019. So if you have applied before, you know what this is about. And so maybe places or organisations who were in places like, say, Ballincollig, you might now have to apply to Cork City Council. So just to be aware, if you are near the boundary of which local authority is for you. This here is some technical information. So we say here that the session times out after 90 minutes. It's a little bit longer than that, but we want to encourage people that you save your work as you go. And we do suggest that you complete the form in maybe another document offline, and then transfer things over when you're happy with it. And then you can also save PDF summaries, which can be really handy if you are sharing information with other committee members or group members, and you don't want to be kind of changing the actual form. So there's a save button at the bottom, and then when we go into the application form properly, you'll see the PDF summary button as well. So to just get into the habit of pressing save. So if you do come in and out of it, what sometimes happens to people is they come into your council and they go in the same way that they did initially through the tab here. But once you have started an application and started saving it, it goes into a little folder here called My Requests. And it's maybe not the most instinctive place to go looking for things. So this is the application I just opened there now, you can see, and it's still open. So it's still continue. I have a few other kind of test things here. And as long as it hasn't been submitted, it will look like this. Once you have submitted something, you can see here it changes and you can view the final application, but it's already been sent. If you leave your application in this status after the deadline, it's just going to sit there. You having this done doesn't automatically submit it. You have to press the submit button at the end of the application. So the first page is details of the organisation, the board or committee or trustees, the art form. So it could be that you're a multidisciplinary festival or you're an art centre with more than one art form. If you're in partnership with any other organisation or group for different projects. So you can see here that there's a little red star. If you don't have any partnerships, you write none. Because if you leave that blank, the star indicates that it's a mandatory field. So you can't physically submit your application if you have blank mandatory fields, even if that means that you have to write in none or not applicable, something like that. you can't submit it until everything that has a star has something in it. So summary of activity. So this is your previous 12 months. So this is calendar year 2021. Now we're just looking for summary. It doesn't have to be a big detailed thing. You can send in things with more detail in your supporting documentation. So maybe it's a festival program or a PDF of activities or documentation of different workshops or things like that. You can see here that these don't have word counts, but they're not meant to be too long. It's summary and names of partnerships. And then you can see here that you can start creating a PDF summary of each page. So if I press this, what it will summarize is this specific page. It won't summarize these. So when you do that, it will probably go into your downloads folder or a temporary folder or something like that. So just to keep an eye out for where that lands when it does download. And then just to get into the habit of saving before you continue. You can always go back. So contact details, so it has saved where I used to live. So that's all that is there. And then we get into the kind of the meat of your proposal. So this is a 1,000 word limit. And if you want to give additional information, artist CVs, letters of confirmation that different activities are happening, or maybe you're working with the partner that you mentioned in the previous page, you can put that into your supporting documentation. So this here is really for you to list out what you're doing. And then this here, this is a 40-word summary. So this is what will get presented in the final council meeting for approval. So the councillors are not given all of the information that you submit. They can request to look at it, of course, but they will be given a list of recommendations, and this 40-word summary, it indicates to them, as well as, you know, the name of the organisation, where they're based, things like that, how much money is being requested. And this can be used as well, kind of as the official record of what the project or what the organisation is doing. So maybe text from here will end up being used to kind of summarize the event. So, or sorry, to summarize the process. So then in kind of minutes of council meetings or things like that, the summary could be taken from here. So again, this doesn't have to list absolutely everything you're doing, it's a summary. Proposed start date. So with a lot of people, they might be doing year-long events or seasonal events. So this fund is for the full year of 2022. So if you're starting in January and ending in December, that's fine, regardless of our deadline being on the 9th. If you're, you know, open for business on the 4th of January or something like that, you know, that's what you're doing. The way it works though is if a project is already completed before 2022 starts, then it's not eligible. So your municipal district, if you're unclear as to which municipal district you are in, or if you're kind of right on the border and you're unsure, you can check that on the Cork County Council website. Adding venues, locations. So you could be just maybe in one venue, you could be virtual and in real life. You could have a series of venues or a trail as part of a festival. So you can, maybe the venue is to be confirmed, but you know exactly, you know, it's in Macroom or it's in Watergrass Hill or whatever. If you are filling this in, you have to fill in both fields because you can see the red star there. So maybe you don't have the venue confirmed yet, but you could write, you know, Columban Hall to be confirmed or something like that. And then the location. It could be that it's online as well. So maybe you just write online in both of these, and then you can add more. So it won't let me go ahead until I fill those in. So audience and participation. So we're differentiating between participants, people who kind of actively involved, and then audience. So maybe it's a play or dance performance or something. So the audience is maybe in a more kind of passive state than if they were actively participating. Sometimes it can be a mix of the two as well. So just say you don't have any participants, it's all audience. You put in 0, you don't leave it blank. So what we're asking for here is, how will your activity improve or enhance public access to the arts in your community? So it could be that you're doing like ongoing events, you do something every year, so maybe you're building on that. And here we have kind of different groups. So it could be that if you're kind of have more than 1 or 2 of these, it could be that you're a general audience. Maybe it's not counted in any of these, so you go for other, and then you write, you know, it could be, I don't know, coastal communities or something like that. Of course, I spelled it wrong. So, will it provide active participation? There's no right or wrong answer to this, it's just so that we know. So then if it says no, then we understand that this makes sense. But if you say, oh, we do provide opportunities for active participation, and then you click 0 here, it might be a bit funny that you're not expecting any participants. If you have professional artists working with you in these activities, marketing and publicity. So I think a lot of arts organizations and groups by their nature are quite adept and agile at marketing. So you will have a mix of things here. So maybe bullet points might be the easiest way to do this. Or maybe that you center, you know, everything is based on your website or your program, and then that's used to populate content on social media to attract press, print media, things like that. Or it could be that you target certain things. So it could be that you're targeting a certain radio show because the content matches up, or that you're doing things like, you know, local newsletters, you're getting involved in that, or that maybe you have a mailing list and you'll be target emailing or target mailing those people as well. So you would probably have more than one way of publicizing. Documentation and evaluation. So the documentation, while it is lovely to have these beautiful professional videos and photographs, sometimes people can do things like that, and that's great for the marketing and the publicity up here, but it might not necessarily document your event. It could be that your documentation includes that, but it could also include maybe photographs of workshops in progress, or documentation of correspondence, folders with maybe numbers of participants, or maybe list of schools that you've worked with or organizations, things like that. So it's more than just that kind of beautiful video or photographs at the end, even though they are obviously very valuable. Your evaluation. So what are you evaluating? You're evaluating your anticipated outcomes, your aims and your objectives. So it could be that you do an event or series of events every year. You could have certain things that you want to evaluate. So you might want to evaluate, you know, people coming back to doing in-person events. You know, is there an increase throughout the year? You could be evaluating the impact of your event on a certain group. So that could be hard to measure, like that's not a facts and figures. So that could be done maybe through talking to people, or doing a survey after workshops, or going back and talking to a teacher, maybe if you're working with a school or something like that. So you could have different ways of gathering your data based on what you want to evaluate. You could be evaluating, you know, where we're trying out a new venue, or we're trying out a new blended approach, or things like that. So it not necessarily that you're evaluating every single thing, but it could be that you have several headings based on your aims and objectives. So again, you can create your PDF summary. So if you keep doing that, you'll have several at the end. And just to save and go on. So this is the fun part. So with your expenditure first, you add lines in. So we've anticipated that these may be some of the headings that you want to use. So just say your artist fees come to 1,000. That's fair enough. And then you go on to the next line. So it could be that, you know, there's things here that it just doesn't cover specifically. So you go into other, you tell us what it is. So maybe it's translation. And maybe that's 500. So you can see there, it comes up as translation. It doesn't come up as other. So you can be not very detailed. Now you can always include a more detailed budget if you wish. But you can indicate there, you can go in and edit, you can delete. So with your income, you could have some of these. You could have another, and then you maybe put that in. I'm not sure what that could be. Maybe what you could have a lot of is in-kind support. So you don't see that here, but in other. Now, usually how I write this, and this is just my own preference, I would do in-kind, maybe volunteer ushers. So maybe you have 5 people, or maybe you've worked it out that it's, you know, 5 people doing 10 hours each at 10 euros an hour. So that's maybe 500. Excuse my maths if that's wrong. So just put that down there. Now that isn't cash. You know, if you were to look at that, just this side, you think, oh, there's 500 euro cash sitting there somewhere. It's not, it's in-kind support that you've given that value. So what you would need to do is cancel that out on the expenditure side, so it's balanced. So it doesn't look like you have 500 euros cash sitting around waiting to be spent. So usually what I do then is I would kind of do the same. So then it doesn't affect the overall cost of things because it cancels itself out. So we're saying that we have 2,000 of expenditure, 500 of that is actually in kind. And then we're saying that we have 600 euro of income, but 500 euro of that is in kind. So it will automatically add things up. And then this is what you're asking Court County Council for. So these are all mandatory checkboxes. So you kind of, you just go through them. So is your group tax registered? So if you say no, nothing happens. But there might be a question as to, well, why? If you check yes, you would give your tax number there. So I'll just put there. And does your organization have a charitable status? You don't have to. Some people aren't eligible, and then for some organizations it's just beyond their capacity to do all that paperwork, so they're not. So if you are, then you give the details of the charitable status and the number attached to it. And again, you can create your PDF, save and go on. And we're nearly there. So insurance. So for your public liability, it's 6.5 million for to indemnify the Cork County Council. So your own one might be different. And then your child protection policy. So if you are working with children or young people, you are required to have a child protection policy. So this might be something that your organization already has. So sometimes people can just upload it and not even look at it. It only gets used when you're applying for funding. I would maybe urge you to have a look and make sure that, you know, it's reviewed, it's appropriate to your organization and to the activities, especially in the last couple of years when people have started to go online. So maybe there needs to be an extra line about that. Or maybe you've said in your policy that it will be reviewed every year, but it hasn't been because you've been doing lots of other things, trying to survive during the pandemic. So just to keep an eye on that. And then we would strongly advise that you use it. You know, it's there to support your organization and the people working in it, and obviously, of course, the children you work with. So if you are working with artists who will be working with children, they should be getting a copy of the policy with enough time to have read it in advance of them working with young people or children. So our IT department has advised that, you know, you work away and you fill in all your text and your figures and you save as you go along. But if you're uploading documents, that maybe you do that at the end just before you're about to submit. Because if you keep saving them and resaving them, there is a chance that the files could get corrupted. And maybe that means that it ends up that you're not sending what you want to send, or you're not representing your organization the best way you could be. So they have advised that when you are uploading, so if you check here and you upload a document, that it's done kind of when you're in the same session that you're going to submit. So there's a couple of different things. You could give us links, so to your website, social media, to specific pages. Maybe you got a review in a newspaper and that's available online. You can also upload, and just to be aware that there is a maximum of 8 files and a size limit per file. So maybe in order not to go over your 8, maybe you cluster a few things. Maybe you cluster a few reviews together, or maybe the program gets kind of put into like one file rather than maybe a couple of different files, so that you can maximize that limit, that you're not kind of giving us like 8 little tiny images and thinking that you've reached your limit. You know, they could all be put into one document and that can just count as one. With your web links, to make sure that it's the full link, so it has the URL. So that means that it has the HTTP at the start, that it's not, it doesn't start with www. So for example, just say I go into here and just pretend this is my website and paste it in here. So you can see there it starts HTTP. Now there's an S there because I'm on a secure network, but that's not an issue. So that it starts with that HTTPS. Now, if I just were to put in and then do that, that's what happens. So you don't want that to happen. But if so, we take that out. So we use it like this. And you click on it, it goes to the page that you want to go to. So then here you're agreeing to this declaration. So if this was a paper form, this would be where your signature would go. So it could be that you need the chairperson or a director or somebody to look at your application before it gets sent off. So you could give them maybe your login details, or you could give them this series of summaries for each page. And then this is automatically generated based on what you've done on the budget page. So just to make sure that that is actually correct. And then once you have all your written things, maybe you put in your uploads and then you can press submit. So once it's submitted, as I showed before, it will be in your My Request. So My Request is like your file of everything you've done. So there could be previous applications in there as well. So once it's sent, it will look like this. But if it's just saved but not sent, it will look like this. So if you are having any problems with the technical side of things, we would advise that you contact our IT support, and you can find those details on the troubleshooting tab. And if there's any questions that you have around the artistic side of your application, maybe around eligibility or things like that, you can contact us on email arts@corkcoco.ie, or you can phone us 021 428 5995. So while we can offer general support and advice, we can't proofread your application before you send it in. We can't, tell you, oh yeah, that'll definitely get funding, or that definitely won't get funding, because we don't know. So we can offer a certain level of support and advice. We can't do the application for you. Not that you probably want us to do it for you anyway. So we are available for support. Now, people will obviously be taking leave around Christmas time, and then we would be here generally Monday to Friday. So if you were having an issue on a Saturday evening, then it might not be until the following week that you would get the support that you are asking for. So thank you for watching, and I hope that was of help. Thanks. Bye-bye.